I think the thing about this is it's an attempt to make a bridge between sort of the centre right and people further right and bring them into a situation where they can coalesce a little bit, much like CPAC has been in the States. Jacob Rees-Mogg was telling me that there's a Venn diagram of reform and conservative members, and they're almost a circle. So yeah, it's an attempt to unite a fractured right.
Right.
Whether Liz Truss is the right person to lead that Trump-style revolution, people aren't as convinced about. No, with the exception of I think Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Now it's day one of the Conservative Political Action Conference in London. It's organised by American Conservative Union. The chair is the former Prime Minister Liz Truss, and the speakers include Lucy Connolly and Nigel Farage. Now, opening the event, Liz Truss paid tribute to Anne Widdecombe.
Before we start on this conference, I'd like to take time to pay our respects to the late Anne Widdecombe, who was brutally murdered in her home last week. I've known Anne for over 20 years. She was a deeply principled politician who stood for the very values we are fighting for at CPAC: free speech, patriotism, and the family. She was courageous and fearless in standing up to the leftist drift we have seen in Britain. She was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
That's Liz Truss opening the event and showing emotion. Matt Schlapp is chair of the American Conservative Union and spoke to Times Radio Breakfast. He was asked if the right was on the rise.
So we say in America, we use the word conservative. And I think we're on the rise. I mean, in America, there's this general consensus where this gets said a lot. Europe is dead. Its best days are behind it. It's over. And they point towards Germany, France, and UK to make that argument. And I've spent a lot of time in Europe. We've had CPACs throughout Europe, Hungary, Poland. We're going to be making some new announcements for Central and Eastern Europe. And I think Europe is very much alive, but I think the future are in the policies more in Central and Eastern Europe and not so much in Western Europe.
It's Matt Schlapp there, the chair of the American Conservative Union. Mikey Smith, then, is US political editor at the Mirror and joins us now, live on the line. Hi to you, Mikey.
Hi, John.
Hi, so give us your impressions of what it's like there now.
So I have been to CPAC in America 3 times, twice in Florida, once in Texas. Of course, everything is bigger in Texas, but this is not on the same scale as that. Someone did a head count. There's about 500 seats in the room, and for most of the day, not all of the day, for most of the day, only about a third of those seats have had bums in them. So it's not nearly on the same scale as CPAC in America. When Liz Truss said in Texas earlier this year that she was bringing CPAC over here, she also said that she wanted to start a Trump-style revolution in Britain. I caught up with her a little earlier and I asked her how that revolution was going, and she acknowledged that it was a work in progress. The work is ongoing.
Yeah, we just heard from Matt Schlapp there, the American Conservative, who you've been writing on social media is tearing into the Conservative Party.
Yeah, it's not been a free ride for the Conservative Party at all, this event. In fact, the crowd, I would say, are much more reform-leaning. Nigel Farage is speaking tomorrow. But, yeah, no, it was a slightly awkward moment when Matt Schlapp said the Conservative Party shouldn't be allowed to be called the Conservative Party anymore. I asked Jacob Rees-Mogg about that. And he didn't seem to mind. He said everyone was very nice to him when he was on stage. There have been Conservatives on stage. There have been Reform people on stage. Suella Braverman spoke today. Obviously, Farage tomorrow. You've had Andrew Griffith, a member of the Shadow Cabinet, gave a speech. It was a little dry, and it wasn't terribly enthusiastically received, but he was here. So I think the thing about this is it's an attempt to make a bridge between sort of the centre right and people further right and bring them into a situation where they can coalesce a little bit, much like CPAC has been in the States. Jacob Rees-Mogg was telling me that there's a Venn diagram of Reform and Conservative members, and they're almost a circle. So yeah, it's an attempt to unite a fractured right.
Right.
Whether Liz Truss is the right person to lead that Trump-style revolution, people aren't as convinced about. No, with the exception of I think Jacob Rees-Mogg. I think he was the only person who thought she was the right person to lead such a move.
So, Mikey, when it comes to the American CPAC, which, as you say, is a much bigger event, you sometimes hear some pretty radical ideas, don't you, on the platform and at fringe events and so on. Some of them you make your eyes widen. So, is there anything of the kind happening there, or does it seem, in its own way, within what we might call the broad mainstream on the right end of the spectrum?
I think in general it's a little further to the right than you'd expect from the broad mainstream in this country. You had Matt Goodwin, who was just being Matt Goodwin. He has a lot of views that I think are to the right of the centre right in this country. He was doubling down on some of his claims about migrants, which have caused some problems for him, or at least, got him some criticism in the past. There's also been some of the attendees. There was a fella called Young Bob, who you may or may not be familiar with, but he's a pretty far-right internet provocateur teenager. He was, until relatively recently, 17 years old. I think he's just turned 18. But he was here. He was talking to people. I think he's only just left. He's been here all day. So it has been, and there were other people on the stage who have said other things that are sort of further right than you'd expect from a mainstream conference. It hasn't been on the scale, I would say, of CPAC, where if you get past 10 a.m. and you haven't heard a podcast to say that Joe Biden was the Antichrist, then you've had a good day.
Okay.
But it's not been quite on that level.
Really good to talk to you, Mikey, as always. Take care. Now,